book friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is on the book When We Were Reckless by Emery Rose. It's the third book in the Lost Stars series of hers. I have done videos on the previous two books. I will of course include her whole playlist that she has on my channel because I've read all of her books. I will include that in the description box below. I was really excited to get back with the McAllister family and get to know Jesse a little bit more. We of course have known him from the previous two books in the series, and I was like, I know a little bit about him. We don't know a lot, but wow, like Jesse was quite a surprise. And I love that Emery can do that she makes me feel at home in her stories and the way she crafts the characters and their family and their lives, and then being able to dive into these main characters in each of the books. I loved Jude and Lila. I loved Brody and Shiloh. Brody just struck a chord with me. I really like Brody. Jesse, I was like, okay, what do you got? What are you gonna give me? And I loved him. Quinn is the other main character in the book. Jesse's best friend. Mason is Quinn's older brother. It is an age gap book. Jesse and Quinn are so much more than their age difference. Jesse has been really successful in the motocross sport. He has recently retired and come back home to Texas. We know that he didn't want to retire, that there's stuff going on behind the scenes with that. He's keeping it really close to the vest. We know because it's dual perspective what's going on, but as far as his family, his fans, his friends, he just kind of retired out of the blue. And there's some speculation, but everyone's trying to respect his privacy, but they're also worried about him because they know motocross was his life. Quinn has just graduated high school. Literally when the book starts, it's her graduation, and is going to go off to UCLA in the fall. She's the youngest. She's got three brothers, and then there's her. So she's like the baby sister, you know? I loved learning about her brothers and the family dynamics. I always think that's a very sweet thing when there's the whole older brother thing. I didn't have that kind of relationship with my older brother, so this kind of family relationship always pulls at my heartstrings. Our oldest child is a boy, and then we have two girls, so I hope that and I do see where he is that kind of typical older brother with them in a lot of ways, and I always love that. And seeing that, it just makes my heart warm because he's just the best guy. I'm a little biased. Anyway, so I understood where Quinn was coming from as far as her relationship with her older brothers and how that works into her life. They're very protective of her. They shelter her. She's had some things in her life that it's very necessary that they feel protective of her and want the best for her and are very involved in her life. So I understood all that. The sweetest thing in the world is that, oh, can you hear my washing machine is finished? Sorry about that if you hear that. It's singing to me to let me know. Anyway, the sweetest thing about Jesse and Quinn is that Quinn decided when she was 5 years old that she was going to marry Jesse. She's always loved him, and he's always been super sweet and adored her. This is what Quinn says about Jesse when she's 5 years old. When I was 5 years old, I asked Jesse to marry me. He said yes. He even went along with the fake wedding ceremony I set up under the giant oak tree in my backyard. I made him wear a daisy chain around his neck that matched mine. We celebrated our nuptials with pink lemonade and pink frosted sugar cookies. After that, I told everyone he was my husband, even the guys at the motocross track where Jesse and my brothers practice. I was only 5 at the time, and he was 14. Okay, so 9 years. Oh my gosh. And the interesting thing about all of that, I'm just realizing, is that those exact things that she just talked about, how they celebrated, come into play later in the book. in a very sweet way. Jesse's in a bad place. Everyone can see it. Everyone can feel it. He's not letting people in because of the connection that they share and have shared their whole lives. Quinn can feel that, and she wants to be there for him as a friend. Of course, she's in love with him. And whether that's puppy love or real love, I mean, it was obviously puppy love when she was 5, but it's morphed and grown with her, and she's also very real about it. And I really liked that part of the story, that the way Emery balances Quinn's innocence and sweetness with her maturity and her able to be real with herself in situations and decision making. I really liked how Emery wrote her. He's pissed off at the world. He's not really nice to anyone, but she doesn't let that stop her. And so she goes to him one night, and this is their interaction. You should go home. You shouldn't be here. You were always there for me when I needed you. I can't just leave you like this. Like what? I had a few beers. I'm not shooting heroin into my veins. I'm not holding a gun to my head. I told you I'm effing fine. But go home, Quinn. He raised the volume on the movie he was watching and focused on the screen. I stared at his profile, at the set of his clenched jaw, his hooded eyes and shuttered expression. I'd never seen this side of Jesse before, and I had no idea he could be so mean, so closed off. Where was the easygoing, laid-back guy I used to know? Where was his smile? Had she taken that from him? Was this all because of her, Alessia Rossi? But it had to be something more than that, right? I didn't know what to think. She's not letting him off the hook that night. She's trying to break down the walls, put a chink in his armor, and this is a little bit later. You're right about one thing. You're not the guy I thought you were. I came over because I thought you might need a friend. You came over hoping to get laid. At least be honest about your intentions, sunshine girl. I stared at him, so shocked that those words had come out of his mouth that I didn't know how to respond or what to think. Can you hear Macy getting comfortable? And a little bit later, it was the casual little shrug and the look of indifference on his face that made the words sink in and burrow deep inside. My hands clenched into fists. My chest was heaving. How dare he say those words to me? I was like, oh, Jesse, we are not starting out on a good foot here. Jesse's in this spot of, who am I now? I've been this motocross superstar, and I'm not anymore. He's 27. He's like, what is going on with my life? Where do I go? What am I doing? He has no path. He doesn't really see a future. He's not trusting himself on his bike anymore. But I did really love that in spades, Jesse is loyal. Jesse is a good friend. Jesse is a good brother. Jesse is aware of how his actions affect those close to him. And I thought it was interesting because of where Jesse was in his life and where Quinn was. Quinn was on the precipice of her life beginning. Like, how was Emery going to craft this story? They're both in such different places, and they both know that. Their connection, I thought Emery wrote beautifully. I felt it all. That they just see each other in a way that nobody else really does. Jesse thought he had that, but yet there were all these complications with this ex-girlfriend, and he comes back home and he has it immediately with Quinn. And he's like, okay, it's there. And Quinn, on the flip side, does look at him with rose-colored glasses a lot because she loves him. But she feels how down he is. She feels his angst about life, and she wants to make it better for him. She wants to help him. To me, their level of angst was exactly perfect because it was perfect for them. Quinn was moving towards places where Jesse had already been in life. Jesse was coming back to the place where Quinn was in life, if that makes any sense. So the angst was about them both being on these different paths. Of course, there's the whole, his best friend is her older brother, she's younger than him. I loved the angsty parts, but angst can also be really hard on my heart. And sometimes I feel like it's a little drawn out, but not in this case at all. I felt like it was a perfect level of tension because I felt like I really knew them. I appreciated the push and pull between them. I appreciated their wants and their needs and how Emery fulfilled them when she fulfilled them in the book. A really pleasant surprise for me was the two people in Jesse's family that really show up for him. One of them is Jude, and I had tears in my eyes in the scene where Jude shows up at Jesse's house and he's like, I'm here. And oh, see, I'm like getting like mushy about it now. And what Jesse says about him. And then a little bit later, Shiloh does the same thing. And I loved, oh my God, I just loved those really tender parts. And it being those two people was extra special to me. It's from Jesse's perspective. Shouldn't you be working or with the kids? Hard to believe Jude had 3 kids now, but after a rocky road back to the love of his life, he was working on making all his dreams come true. Yes to both. I took a sip of my coffee. Then why are you here? The kids are with Lila. The work will always be there, but you're not doing so great, and if there's anything I can do to fix this, say the effing word, and I'll do whatever it takes. And that was the thing about Jude. His words weren't empty. He really meant them, and he would do anything it took to fix the things for the people he loved. Oh my God. Like that just hit me, and it just took me right back to Jude's book and what he went through. Oh my God, I loved it. Quinn is real about Jessie and her feelings, in how she worries that he'll never be in love with her and that she's just a friend. And then Jessie is like, she's always been my sunshine girl. She's always been the one to really see inside me. Interesting with Quinn, she says to Jessie at one point, you might have been my first kiss, but I'm not saving any of my other firsts for you. And he's like, oh, like that was like an arrow to his heart. And I loved hearing how he reacted to her saying that. And then Jessie says, Quinn had obviously gotten over her crush on me. She was having fun, being a teenager, enjoying her summer just like she should be doing. It should have been a relief. We'd stay in the friend zone where we belonged. She was too young for me, and I wasn't the same guy I used to be. So she was right to protect herself from me. I'm saving myself for someone who treats me like a queen, and that's not you. I rubbed my hand over my heart. Those words shouldn't hurt as much as they did, and I sure as hell shouldn't want her the way I did. My sunshine girl with her pouty lips and star-filled eyes. So I'm not spoiling anything when I tell you that eventually at some point they turn towards each other and they take their feelings to a new level. I loved it. I just love Emery's love stories and the tenderness that comes across between the two of them. It's everything that you would want when you were 18 and with an older guy, but yet comfortable in your own skin and willing to push your own boundaries. Quinn was a little vixen, and Jessie embraced that. Something I loved about Quinn is that she is a budding author, and she writes. Those were really cute moments when she talked about writing her stories, and this is one of those moments. God, he looks so arrogant and so beautiful, with the morning sun on his golden tan face and his eyes so blue. His jacket fit like a glove molded to his broad shoulders and tapering down to his narrow waist, and he was standing in front of his big black motorcycle, looking so impossibly cool. I just wanted him all to myself, but I couldn't say that, could I? I couldn't tell him that I dreamed about him last night, or that he was the hero in the story I was writing, or that I'd killed off his ex-girlfriend, cackling like a lunatic while I'd been writing that scene. She made me laugh. Oh, I just adored her. And Jessie. She still believed in happily ever afters and fairy tale romance. She still had the stars in her eyes and wore her heart on her sleeve. And I knew with absolute certainty that if she gave me her heart, I would break it. I wasn't in the right place in my life to make her dreams come true right now, or to open my heart to her. Right now, I was too effed up, still hanging on to so much bitterness and anger, and I'd never be able to give her all of me, and Quinn shouldn't have to settle for less. Oh my God, Jessie. Like, literally, I loved him, and I loved how he always, okay, let's be real. He put himself first when he took the next step with her, but otherwise he always put her first and knew where she was in life and recognized that and was aware of that. And yet he says things like, I know I'm gonna break her heart, and I'm like, oh God, please don't do that. So we know there's like this impending end date, so to speak, and they're dancing around that a little bit, but yet they both know it's coming. And oh my gosh, when Quinn said this, I had tears. I love Jessie just as much as I always had, even more now, but that was just it. I loved him and he didn't love me. I couldn't keep wishing and hoping that he'd change his mind about us. If he hadn't already, he never would. So I had to be brave and strong and tell him goodbye. So I loosened my hold on him. I wasn't holding on as tightly, and then I let go of him altogether. I unwound my arms that were wrapped around him, and slowly, ever so slowly, my thighs squeezed the seat underneath me to stay balanced. I sat up a little straighter, a little taller, and I held my arms out at my sides. I felt the warm breeze sift through my fingers, and I tasted the salty tears on my lips. It made me feel a little bit unbalanced, not holding on to Jessie, but I couldn't keep hanging on to someone who didn't want me the way I wanted him. I didn't want to be that girl. I refused to be that girl any longer. Not for the guy I'd loved all my life, because I'd learned a few things this summer. I learned that someone could be kind but cruel at the same time. I learned that you never get over your first love, but you could eventually move on. I learned that unrequited love was more tragic than the love story of the sun and the moon, because at least the sun acknowledged his love for the moon. Jessie must have realized I'd let go because I could feel us slowing down. He was easing up on the throttle, and he was watching me in the side mirror. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I had a feeling he was angry. He'd always told me to hang on tight, and usually I did, but tonight I hadn't listened. Oh my God, sweet girl. Ooh, like, yeah, that one got me. Boy, do they go through it in this book and the last couple chapters. I was dying. It was actually one of those books where I could have finished it at night, but I was so emotional and invested that I had to wait until the next day to finish it, because I knew I wouldn't sleep that night if I finished it, that I would stay up obsessing about it. So I waited until the next morning, and I had a couple minutes, and I sat down and finished it so I could obsess on it for the rest of the day. And that's exactly what I did. Thank goodness we do get a happily ever after, as always with Emery's books. If you haven't read her yet, please go read her. Literally any of her books. She writes these beautiful, emotional love stories, and her voice is just, I feel so connected to her, because I feel like when authors like her put their hearts in their stories, like I know she does, and I read them and I see that and I feel that, it makes me feel like I know them. I see their heart and I feel their heart, and I acknowledge that, and I love that. Let me know if you have read When We Were Reckless or the previous two books, or which other of Emery's books you have read. You know I always love to hear and chat about it. Thank you for taking a moment while you're watching the video to give it a thumbs up. I really would appreciate it, and don't forget to subscribe. You can always come over and say hello to me on my social media, which is Cat Reads Romance on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. See you soon. Bye.